All right, thank you, Newman. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome us officially to another series, another episode, if I may put it that way, of book reading sections on the PDL Tribe Book Challenge. So, we're looking at Good to Great this time around, our April read, and unfortunately, the group that is supposed to actually give us that welcoming are not here. The representatives are not here. So and we'll just do a brief welcome and then we'll start. So my name is Emeka Favor, and I'm delighted uh to be part of this opening session, and of course to be also the part of the group that is presenting today. And so before I go forward, I'd just like us to unmute and exchange pleasantries and as we start officially for this um ride, as I'll call it, this journey. Hello, good evening, ma'am. Mrs. Shodipe, I can see you. Coach Ajajake Henry, good evening. Mr. Sam, it's good to see you.
Safe. Thank you.
Good evening. Yeah, peace, good evening. How are you doing? Great. Okay, so I'd like to take us through why the book came up. So a very brief intro to how Jim Collins has to look to good to great. So he wrote a book previously, and I think that should be his previous book was more like how um how great companies stay great over time. So that's a built to last. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. So Jim Collins wrote the book Built to Last, and then people then accosted him. I think his colleague now. So and they were like, okay, so uh these companies are the great companies that he wrote about. They've always been great. So and to him it looked as if these companies just fell down from heaven. So he took up the challenge, and then wrote this new book that is an offshoot of Built to Last. So Collins then decided that he was going to kind of explore the companies that are that are not just merely good, but companies that can become the ones that are truly great. So he tried to prove the point that these companies did not just fall down from heaven. They did not just land to um, the great heights where they are. So then he then came up with good to great. So going back to our slides, he started with good is the enemy of great. Yeah, just to answer those disturbing questions that the colleagues has pointed out that okay, so anyone who is good is good already. And then he tried to point out that there were processes involved in this. Next slide, please. Thank you. So he and his research members, they took up a project to really prove to people um that there are still great companies out there, and of course there is always a beginning. So and then this project was just targeted to prove that people were not just good, but they can also be great. I mean, for even for those companies that uh, when that are already there, they can equally become great. And of course, to also prove the point uh of the process of being built to last. So he was pointed back to answering the question of being built to last, starting from where you are and growing to becoming good, and not just being good, being able to move forward to becoming great. So then they took up research to just still using those companies that they use that have lasted over the years, that have been built to last as their basis for their research. Him and his team members, his research team, they went back to carry out the study, and then this study then included the companies that they've been showing good results about, and of course the companies that have lasted for over 15 years. So the study also like included other companies that either did not make up that started well and probably did not end up well, and then they also covered companies that started and hit the target, and then all of a sudden they went quiet without a word about them again. So just bringing all those category of people. So the team just ensured that they picked the companies that have lasted over 15 years, and the very reason for that was just to be sure that time and season has equally dealt with all these companies. So just so that they could come up with the real um the real people that they would like to emphasize about in terms of answering the questions that bug them with the being built to last and all of that. So, and Newman, please give me the next slide. Okay, so during their research, they decided to look through the different strategies that each of these companies actually adopted. They looked at the leadership, they looked at the technology that the that the companies were all using to achieve whatever it is they achieve. And of course, just to also prove that it's not just because they had the best CEOs. That's why they had to go for companies that have been tested over the period of 15 years. So, of course, with a period of 15 years, you can be sure that change in management, change in workers, and of all either if I wouldn't call it a change, I would either call it an upgrade thereabouts. So it won't be a case of one very interesting CEO like that had an idea, or one particular department was just go to hit a point. So the period of 15 years was a testing period that was able to allow time and season to happen to every one of them. So for those, they were able to eliminate the people that hit it big ones and went quiet and nobody heard from them. So they now discover that there were just these three factors they found in each of these companies, of course, had that have had a record of greatness in one form or the other. So they realized that three things were key to them. They had disciplined action, and me, I would just say they adopted discipline in all ramifications. So in action, in the people they had as workers, and the people they had as staff, the people they had as pillars were disciplined people, and of course they also had disciplined thoughts. So everything that they had to put in place to achieve whatever they achieved was all boiled down to targeted to them adopting discipline as a body. So they the the measurement for whatever each of these companies that have stand over 15 years could actually be tested through was being seen in the form of the level of discipline that they all adopted. Please, next slide. So and then their research then eventually settled for 11 good to great examples, companies. So each company selected actually showed the good to great trend without being in an overall great industry. So they then decided to use the stock market result pattern as a standard for inclusion, since they could not determine any other legitimate objective standard of success. So they narrowed down to 11 key companies that they then use for this particular research. Okay, so the research then focused on companies that were good, companies that that actually had the same processes, that was incurring the same problem. So there was no, these 11 companies now didn't have any other one having any advantage over them in terms of will I say, like I just said, the discipline level was just there the same. So there was no, you can't, in a way you can't say one of the company had any upper hand against the other. So like I said, time and season has happened to every one of them. They had equal opportunity, they had equal level of discipline in terms of the people they had in their team, in terms of how their ideas come about. So the this curiosity about these companies now, and if I may still bring us back to where I started, the reason for the book. When people say, okay, the great companies has always been there, and it was beginning to appear like they fell from heaven, and he then had to go back to figure out why the people that were seemingly looking great suddenly didn't become great, and why the ones that were great actually became great, and even why they remained great. Newman, let's have the next slide. So the phase one was the research movement, yeah, of 15 companies thereabout. Then the phase two, so they compared each of these to each other. They compared both companies, and of course what good to great companies share in common, and what distinguish them from. So they did not just focus on what they share in common. So they also focus on the distinguishing factor in these various these 11 companies that they eventually carried out their research on. This phase three, please. Okay, so they looked at companies that actually were in the same industry as the great companies that had, I think I've already said a lot about this one already. They had the same opportunity, they had similar resources, time, time of transition, but still showed no leap from good to great. So this, and then the unsustained comparison, the companies that made a short time shift from good to great but failed to maintain, yeah, those that their glory was hard, and then all of a sudden it became like a glory in the past for them. Next slide, please. I would like to just narrow down in the key lessons, and please give me the next slide. Good. So this is the part that I love the most. Their results showed lessons that one of the good things about the book, or good thing about the findings of this particular project they carried out, is that it's applicable even till now, and we could still look through them. So good to great companies were not by by and large in great industries, and some were in terrible industries. So the greatness is not a function of circumstances. Like I said, time and season happen to every single one of them all. So the greatness largely is a matter of conscious effort. So it's it was a case of those who were intentional about what they were doing, because like I said, that there was no basis of any of these 11 companies being having more merit over the other. It was then cutting down to those who made conscious choice, and then in terms of using technology that they had, so technology was made available to each and every one of them, and the people who decided to use what they had, they gained the acceleration they needed in the great heights that they were able to achieve in their industry. So technology can accelerate a transformation, but technology cannot cause a transformation. So it still takes me back to the very first thing. It's a matter of conscious choices that these people took in 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 the resources that were made available for them. So the good to great companies, they did not focus principally on what to do to become great. So they focused equally on what not to do and what to stop doing. So they evaluated, okay, it's good, it's not good enough to for you to just know what you want to do to become great. I think one of the things that happens when we pass through tests in time is that you also learn how not to do some things. So they also focus equally on what not to do and what to stop doing. So in processes where results were not being achieved in the manner which they had imagined or they had determined eh, or expected, they had to stop doing some things along the way. So now this is like bringing out the distinguishing factor of those that were able to not just pass through time, but to stay, to live in glory and to remain in glory. So there was no systematic pattern or strategy to separate good to great companies from comparison companies, as it was observed that all the companies had great strategies. Yeah, next slide. I think I'm almost done because the chapter is quite like an introduction. Okay, so the chaos concept. So in this phase was an overview of a framework of concepts. So they had level 5 leadership, which required to turn a good company into a great one. So okay, so I think looking into the strategies that they use, the framework that they use, so companies setting up leadership positions that had big personalities that could help in singing their song. So it's a question of answering who and then what. People are not your most important assets. The right people are your most important assets. So this level of leadership is where they place priority to having the right persons and who had great personalities, who could stand out on the pages of newspaper and and are equally celebrities. So that actually gave a shout out to this set of people. So okay, so comparing this to companies that didn't have this right people, and I would say that is a case of how they took the circumstance that they had, the situation they were faced with, and what they allowed to them become their reality. So, but I love the idea of us not just is it gave me a picture of not just having people, not just having numbers, but having the right numbers. I think having the right people around gives you the right contribution that you need. It gives you the right insight, the right ideas that you need for growth, and of course it boils down to them having the right goals, setting the right goals, and of course when what just came to my mind is when everything is just right, you just have to have the right result at the end of the time. um Iman, please, the next slide. Okay, so another key lesson and keynote, and a culture of discipline. So, like we when we started, we said the different companies that were examining them, one thing was consistent in them is the discipline level that they had. So a culture of discipline. So all companies have a culture, and then some companies have discipline, but few companies have a culture of discipline. So they have a pattern, they have what they allow, they have what you see that you don't need to ask again because you are able to identify them with. So when you have disciplined people, you don't need hierarchy. So it's a case of it just boils down to having the right people at the same time. So these right people just know is not something that you then start to teach or to try to strike a balance all the time or repeating the same thing. So when you have disciplined thoughts, you don't need any other distraction. You don't need any other, will I say, thought that doesn't balance with the team. And then when you have disciplined actions, and remember, it's more like a group of people with the same mind that could almost tell what achievements they can get. So there's no confusion in the combination of having a disciplined person, having a disciplined action, and you you don't need excessive controls. Yeah, you don't need the boss kind of people who always tend to want to put things in place like that. So because you have the right kind of people. So when you combine a culture of discipline with an ethic of entrepreneurship, yeah, you get you get a mind blowing great result in whatever you are putting yourself through. So from good to great to build to last. Build to last is about how you take a company with great results and turn it into an enduring great company of good structure and pillar. But from good to great concept to sustained great results, built then add built to last concept to it. That's what this book is all about. Next slide should be the last, I guess. Okay, so in conclusion, the book shows a research for timeless principles of it showed the great people who started something and what made people to fall out and what made those that stayed to stay true and what is keeping those that are still existing where they are. So the enduring figures of great organizations that will remain true and relevant no matter how the world changes around us. So that's what the challenge that people threw back to Jim Collins took him back to making sure that he has an answer to that to 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 demonstrate what actually makes people remain true and relevant no matter whatever excuses we might give. So the application of this would uh of good to great will remain. That's for those that would buy the idea of going through the principles that this book has to offer to us, and of course not just um looking at having a plan, but also looking at having the right set of people to, because those were like key lessons I picked from the research they did, looking at having the right set of people, and this right set of people having the right the common mindsets, or will I say same spirit, to achieve a lot. So a challenge the book is just totally just covering the fact that great people did not just fall down from down there, and it took a whole lot of process. It took the process of starting, being good, and then being great, and then virtually remaining great. I think those are just the concepts that this book covers in in whole. So from group 11, I'd like to say thank you. And that brings me to the end of our presentation today.